Hello everyone, my name is Rochelle Innocent and I'm the founder and CEO of Project Purpose. Welcome to our channel. Our community is focused on fostering the intellectual and character development in children. We do this through our parent-child workshops that are focused on 4 themes: autonomy, self-efficacy, compassion, and self-concept, in order to cultivate grit, perseverance, and resilience in each child. And we are so thrilled to be offering one of the first of its kind digital, virtual, and continuous learning environments, enabling children and parents to connect from all around the world. At Project Purpose, our overarching mandate is to renew and rebuild family, community, and relationships. Our different social media platforms provide us with an opportunity to have discussions on all topics that relate to family, community, and relationships with ourselves as well as with others, with a primary focus on mental health and education. More precisely, the ways that the institutions of mental health and education play a role and have played a role in our society at large. These discussions and debates provide us with an opportunity to think critically about what needs to change within these structures in order for us to live up to our bold slogan: support, protect, and empower each child through youth-focused development, better known as leadership in juvenescence. For those of you who are particularly keen on the topic, we also write thought pieces every other Sunday. We just dropped one this past Sunday, so be sure to meander over to the website and read our online content. If it is the case that you're looking for listening alternatives, well, we're available on 10 different podcast platforms for your listening leisure, and we've provided you with access to the links in the description down below. Now, as is the convention, be sure to subscribe, hit our post notification bell so that you are aware of it every time you post. And of course, if you like our conversations and you want to keep them going, like, comment, and share this segment. Let's get into it. Allô tout le monde. Hello everyone, I hope all of you are doing well, and welcome back to another segment here on Project Purpose. For those of you who are new, we cover topics that relate to mental health, mental wellness, and education on a week-by-week basis. And this week our topic of discussion is mental wellness. Now, we scratched the surface in our first video this week, talking very generally about how all of the different layers of culture, tradition, society across the world can serve to complicate our relationship with food. So I wanted to have a high-level conversation about that. I found it just very interesting how the pandemic showed me that it wasn't just personal, it wasn't just me who grew up having to be really mindful and really intentional to build a healthy relationship with my food. It took pretty much my entire lifetime, but I really started to make strides in my early 20s, and I thought that was just me. But then I think with TikTok and with everyone having a social platform, with all these mukbangs, you start to really see the different intricacies and how people interact and build values and build beliefs around their food. And it's not just in North America, this is all around the world. I've recognized that we have deep-seated, sometimes very problematic beliefs with how we view our food, with how we build our relationships with food. And sometimes we try to brush it under the rug. We don't like to think about food as being something that's very complicated. Food plays into connection, it plays into tradition, it plays into pretty much all aspects of living, yet we don't talk enough about how we can be just more intentional and more mindful of the ways that we build and cultivate our relationships with food. So this video, I actually wanted to be a little bit more specific, and I wanted to give you guidelines that I've learned that have helped me cultivate a stronger foundation and a healthier relationship with my food. And it really has stirred and redirected the way that I interacted and consumed food. Once I realized that there are healthy ways to interact with our food, I find the healthy way to interact with our food is this bike trail in a rainforest that's very rarely used, and it's very hard to make out the trail and make out if you're just riding in the forest. And I think that there are really so many unhealthy ways to interact with our food, and that's a highway. It's a 16-lane highway in downtown Toronto. And I think there are so many different unhealthy ways to interact with our food. We just need to really try to find access access to information that will help us to deconstruct and then reconstruct healthier ways to engage with the food that we eat. So I wanted to talk about the 4 lessons that I've learned by way of my food consumption that have really helped me build a healthy relationship with food. And so the first one of the 4 is love the skin you're in. When it comes to food, if you're eating from a place of self-hatred, if you're eating and then you're feeling like you're angry about the fact that you have to eat because you're not your idea of the ideal weight, or you're eating but you're feeling contemptuous about the food that you're putting into your body, about needing to fuel your body or to energize your body, I think that creates a downward spiral in so many different directions, and it's never going to turn out in your best interest, right? Like if you approach food and food consumption with self-loathing because you don't love the skin you're in and you're resentful about the way that food engages and interacts with your body, I don't think that that's a place to create positive and healthy change. I think when you learn to love the skin that you're in and you recognize that healthy looks different on each of us, we have different genes, we have different DNAs, which is going to inform our build and inform the way that we show up and inform, our median weight and so on and so forth, then we recognize that food just helps us to maintain a healthy body, right? And a healthy body is very different from a healthy body image. I think a healthy body image is recognizing that who you are as you are is beautiful, is enough, and it doesn't need to look like a standard. And I think one of the real points of contention when it comes to the relationships that we cultivate with our food is like these beauty standards that exempt like 80% of us. And beauty standards, again, they're culturally informed. And I think growing up Canadian, but of Caribbean descent, like there's so many different messaging around my body and around the acceptance of my body, right? And for Canadian culture, like my body is perfectly fine, but in Caribbean culture, I was always too small. And I have the kind of metabolism where it almost felt like the more that I ate, the smaller I became. And I'm just a small build and I'm petite. That's just not the ideal body for someone who is of Caribbean descent. And I had to learn to just love the skin that I'm in, like hating the fact that I'm small and petite. That really informed a very unhealthy dynamic with my food. And I have to say, up until my early 20s, I did not have a healthy way of engaging with my food. I went for unhealthy food intentionally, hoping that I would gain weight. I was one of those people who didn't like any type of physical activity because I didn't want to burn any calories at all. And I was still petite. So when we talk about, people who are small but are unhealthy, like who are truly unhealthy, like I went through, my puberty years unhealthy. And my body, like I think I'm naturally an athletic person. I have a naturally athletic build, but I was so bent on gaining weight. I lived the least active life I possibly could between the ages of 13 and 18, trying to create my body, trying to build weight on my body that just isn't part of my blueprint, right? But I had to do a lot of work to undo that damage and treat food from a place of like self-love, recognizing that I'm going to eat the food that helps my body, that nourishes my body, that sustains and energizes my body. And I'm not going to eat for the purpose of trying to make my body fit into a cultural norm that my body isn't suited for. And I think that this idea that we have these norms, and these norms create this comparison and create a point of criticism that we kind of leverage as the anchor for the way that we interact with our food. I think that's really something that we need to think about in the way that we even teach and inform and build values around food with our children, so that they're not having to deconstruct those norms in order to love the skin that they're in. So that's the first lesson that I've learned that I'd like to impart on you today. The second lesson that I've learned is about intuitive eating. And intuitive eating, I don't know if this is a new trend, or I'm just new to the language specific to this, but I love it. I love intuitive eating. And for, I think, each of us, the way that we eat intuitively means that we're eating different portions at different times throughout the day. And I can tell you, for me, my ideal is I like to eat every 2 to 3 hours. And that typically will translate as 4 meals and 4 snacks. That's my ideal. But because I grew up with like a lot of food intolerances and a lot of allergies, I've learned to go without. I've learned to be very disciplined about what I eat and only eat when I know that what I'm eating is not going to create a visceral effect. So, eating the wrong thing for me translated as acute suffering and visceral reactions that sometimes lasted for weeks on end. I am very, very disciplined with my food intake. And if I'm not sure what's in that food, or if I'm not the person who's purchased that food, if I don't know how that food has been prepared, if I don't know how that food has been taken care of, I'm not going to eat it. And And it's not a question of struggle. It's not even a question of temptation. I have suffered too much and too acutely to even be remotely tempted by food that I'm not 100% solid on. For me, I think that this intuitive eating is super, super critical. I think it's super important. I think breaking away from traditions around like, eating 3 times a day and then feeling guilty about snacking, I think your body will tell you when it's hungry. And when your body tells you that it's hungry, eat something, right? And it doesn't have to be a lot. And I'm a high energy person, and depending on how much energy I have will determine how much food I consume. And if I'm like high energy, burning lots of energy, my portions are humongous. And some people are like, oh my gosh, like where do you fit that food? Like, where does it go? When I'm gonna talk about this, this commentary in my 3rd lesson, I think is completely inappropriate. Depending on how much energy you're burning, expect to have different portions of food that you need to consume. If I'm studying, I'm eating way more than if I'm just having a slow day, right? If I am working, if I'm being creative, I'm eating way more than if I'm having like a standard day. And I think that because I recognize like food is fuel first and foremost, pleasure second, I treat food as fuel. And I know what food is going to bring my energy way up there. And there are foods out there that make you lethargic. And if you don't remember the day that you had energy and you are just consumed with lethargy on a day-to-day basis, then my friend, you are eating food that is not doing or serving you well. And I think that, again, like all of us need to figure out like what a healthy baseline is. Like if that means food is function first, pleasure second, great for you. But I think all of us need to be the ones to inform the baseline and the foundation of how we value our food and why we value our food and how we can create values, ideals, and beliefs around food that make food consumption healthy and that cut out and shut out the voices that overcomplicate our relationship with our food. This brings me to my 3rd point, and that's external commentary on food consumption. And I think that needs to become taboo. I think if there's anything that needs to be a social faux pas and something that we feel like is very deeply offensive is having other people feel like they have the right or they're ever comfortable to comment on our food consumption. I don't think it is ever appropriate for someone to comment on our food unless they're a medical professional and we're seeking their support. Even if you yourself are aghast, or even if you're surprised, if you're shocked, or if it's not the amount of food that you typically like to eat, it is not your business to comment on. And if someone comments on my food, I'm immediately offended. If I hear someone commenting on someone else's food, I'm immediately offended. It's never okay to comment and to make someone feel self-conscious and insecure and unsure about their food intake. Like if someone's enjoying their meal, regardless of the portion or the sizes, who are you to say something about it? And I can get like really animated on this topic because I think it's taken me so long to learn that external voices need to get shut out so that I can maintain a healthy relationship with my food. And the reason why I didn't have a healthy relationship with my food was because of external commentary, because I let other people's opinions get to me about what I was eating and how what I was eating was playing into my body and how my body was showing up, and having other people comment on my body. And comments on our body is going to be my 4th lesson. I think we each need to develop just a lot more confidence in letting people know like that is not okay. It's not okay for you to comment on my food. It's not okay for you to make me feel insecure about how much food I'm eating, or how little food I'm eating, or how frequently that I'm eating. That's no one's business but your own and whomever you invite into your circle of building healthy food and nutrition. So like professional advice. And if someone's not providing you their professional opinion, then they should feel free to keep their comments and their opinions to themselves. So my last point is food and body image. And I mentioned this in my first video this week. A healthy body looks different on each of us. And I think that because there are standards of beauty and there are body image standards, it bleeds into our relationship with food. So if we aren't the ideal, if we're below or above whatever that standard is, if we're below and above by way of weight, by way of build, so on and so forth, then it's going to play into our relationship with food, because we all recognize that food plays into how our bodies show up in different spaces that we're in. I think if we learn that, a healthy body is a beautiful body, first and foremost, and a healthy body looks different on each of us. Each of us is going to have a different version of a healthy body. Like for me, I was a petite baby. I'm a petite human. I most likely will be petite for the rest of my life. Like it's never shifted or changed. So that's a healthy body for me. That's what a healthy body looks like. And loving my body, like loving the skin that I'm in, allows me to also create healthy, loving relationships with the food that I eat and that I consume, to feed and keep my body healthy. And I think that it's just so important that we start to deconstruct this idea that the external world has a say on our body image. If you are happy with what your body looks like, if you are happy with the level of mobility, the range of motion, with the way that you show up in different spaces, if you are happy with the amount of energy that you have on a day-to-day basis, if you feel healthy, then love the skin that you're in and allow food to be a healthy part of how you maintain your body moving forward. Now, if you aren't happy, I still think that approaching shifts and changes to our body based on loving the skin that we're in is like the way that we want to show up in trying to make change in the way that we look. I don't think any healthy, positive change comes from a place of self-loathing or from a place of judgment or from a place of criticism. I told you in my first video, like I threw out my scale in my early 20s and it has been the best. I have never gone back. Since I've thrown out my scale, I don't care to know my weight. For me, it's all about the visual. I will look in the mirror. I will appreciate and love what it is that I see. And if there's something that I think requires more focus, I will do it from a place of self-love, from a place of wanting to challenge myself, from a place of being curious to see if I try these different exercises, will it like impact the way that this shows up or the way that this looks? It's never from a place of self-loathing, right? Like I love my body, all the different sizes that my body is in. And like when I'm very stressed out, I will lose a lot of weight. And I love my body when it's super small, but my focus is on, okay, like let me build that weight back. But like not from a place of self-criticism and self-judgment, which was how I would try to gain weight in the past, like trying to be the build that genetically I am just not built to be, and that my body really had no interest in becoming, no matter how much effort I put into it. So those are the 4 lessons that I have by way of food that I learned. I think there are so many more lessons, but because I was so hesitant to talk about food on my channel by way of mental wellness, and I think food and mental wellness go hand in hand, and a lot of us struggle with food and it has a huge impact on our mental wellness. I just didn't know to what degree it was prevalent outside of my own scope of reference. I didn't realize that it was something that a lot of people have had experience with, and I learned that because of the pandemic and because of the level of interaction and engagement I've had in different social platforms, and I think why not have the conversation about it? So this is us talking a little bit more deeply about like just the lessons that I've learned that have helped me build a healthier relationship with food. I want to share them with you and get your sense as well. And that's going to be it for today's segment. Now, before you leave, I would be remiss if I didn't let you know that we now are going to be going live at minimum twice a month, every month for the foreseeable future on our Facebook page. So definitely be sure to give us a follow and to RSVP to your live event. We have them all available online for your perusal. Now, these events are paid events. We facilitate them in a way to help you cultivate the life skills and the critical thinking skills to derive more meaning and fulfillment out of life. And also, if you do see yourself participating in our community on an ongoing basis as a game changer, then might I suggest our package plan. So we have package plans that will give you unlimited access to our live events and also access to our webinars and workshops that we offer over and above those live events. So definitely be sure to check that out. I've provided you with access to the links in the description and also on the page. And I look forward to seeing you in our next segment. We'll talk to you soon.
I just feel like no one's listening.